The IDF is continuing its major anti-terror operation in Judea and Samaria. Hundreds of security personnel were involved in raids of terror sites, with incursions reported in Tulkarem, Nur Shams, Tubas, and Jenin, in northern Samaria and also in the Jordan Valley. 11 terrorists were reportedly killed in the ongoing operation. According to the IDF, 3 terrorists were killed in an airstrike in Jenin, 2 more were killed by undercover border police units in the same area, and 4 others were eliminated in Farah, also in an airstrike. Terror operatives planted explosives in an attempt to target Israeli forces. No casualties were reported among Israeli forces during the raids. Day 328 of the war in Gaza, the IDF has retrieved the body of another soldier who was murdered on October 7th and his body taken hostage. IDF operations are ongoing and include the demolition of a 3-kilometer-long terror tunnel. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The body of an Israeli soldier who was killed and abducted by Hamas on October 7th was recovered by the military from the southern Gaza Strip overnight. At the request of the family, the soldier's name is not yet permitted for publication. Following the overnight operation, 103 of the 251 hostages abducted by Hamas on October 7th remain in Gaza, including the bodies of 33 confirmed dead by the IDF. In Doha, talks are continuing between mediators seeking the elusive hostage for ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. According to the U.S., the fate of the deal is in the hands of Hamas leader Sinwar. The deputy director of the CIA, David Cohen, said that Israel is working seriously at the talks. Now we need to hear from the captors. This morning, some relatives of hostages holding a protest near the Gaza border breached the fence and attempted to run toward their loved ones. After pleas by security forces, they made their way back to Kibbutz Nirim. It's day 328 of the war in Gaza. The IDF is operating in the south and center of the enclave. The IDF discovered and destroyed a 3-kilometer-long tunnel in the center. The Yalam unit and ground forces located, investigated, and destroyed the offensive underground tunnel about 3 kilometers long, right in the center of the Gaza Strip. The battle team of the Jerusalem Brigade has been fighting in the central corridor of Gaza for the past few weeks. So far, the forces have eliminated dozens of terrorists and destroyed hundreds of terror infrastructures. The IDF announced the deaths of 2 soldiers who were killed in the ongoing fighting in the Strip. Master Sergeant Yohai Glam, 32 of the Jerusalem Brigade from Netanya, was killed fighting in central Gaza. Staff Sergeant Amit Friedman, 19, of the Nachal Brigade from Or Yehuda, was killed in southern Gaza.
In the north, the IDF conducted a drone strike on the Syria-Lebanon border, killing a senior Islamic Jihad member and 3 other terrorists. Prime Minister Netanyahu visited a border community under attack and said IDF operations against Hezbollah would end only when northern residents can return safely to their homes. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The IDF claimed responsibility for the attack on the Beirut-Damascus highway, killing 4 terrorists, including Faris Qassem, a prominent member of Islamic Jihad operations, along with Hezbollah fighters. According to the IDF, the airstrike was on the Syrian side of the border. The IDF said the 4 were driving from Syria to Lebanon to carry out operations on behalf of Hezbollah. The Air Force continued pounding Hezbollah in South Lebanon, hitting military structures and buildings where terrorists were operating in the Al-Adaisa area. Hezbollah continues firing rockets from South Lebanon, but they fell harmlessly, causing no injuries. Visiting a border community in the north, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that the preemptive strike on Hezbollah this week was not the end of the story. The end, said Netanyahu, is only when we can bring back security and return the residents back home safely.
אנחנו סיכלנו את כל הכטב"מים שכוונו למדינת ישראל, לגליל ולמרכז, והם הושמדו וסוכלו. זו הצלחה גדולה, אבל אני לא אומר לכם שזה מספיק. להפך, אמרתי אמת פשוטה. זה לא סוף פסוק. מתי יהיה סוף פסוק? רק כשנוכל להחזיר את הביטחון ואת התושבים לבתיהם בבטחה.
As Israel faces ongoing threats from nearly every border, the IDF is hard at work dismantling terror infrastructure and foiling attempted attacks in Gaza, the West Bank, Syria, and Lebanon. Here to discuss Israel's strategy in confronting these threats is Brigadier General Yosi Kuperwasser. General Kuperwasser, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure to have you on. I'd like to start just by asking you your take on Netanyahu's statements about the North. It's been 10 months. Only now he's visiting, claiming he'll restore a sense of security. The big question, of course, is how?
Well, first of all, good afternoon. Secondly, I don't think it's his first visit in the North. He's been to the North several times. But what he means by the fact that this is not the end of the story is that, of course, we have to finish the job in the North as well. We'll have to create a new situation along the northern border that will guarantee the security of the people that are living along the border and will enable them to come back safely to their communities. The timetable is unclear.
What does that involve? What does that look like, securing that border? Pushing Hezbollah back past the Litani River? Is it something alternative? What does it actually look like, practically restoring that security? Or could it look like?
Looks like we're pushing Hezbollah north of the Litani River and establishing some sort of system that would enable us to make sure that they don't course down to the south and deploy along the border again. We might need Israeli presence along the border on the Lebanese side for making sure that this is the case. But anyhow, I think it will require first finishing the job in Gaza and coming to the north based on decisive victory in Gaza and defeating Hamas. And that's the order that Netanyahu is putting forward. He wants first to finish in Gaza and then move to the north. Otherwise, the chances of reaching an agreement with Hezbollah at the end of the day are very slim.
Now, we do know there are many Islamic Republic-backed terror groups in Syria. We've now heard there's an influx of terror operatives from Iran, even in the West Bank. Does Israel have an overall strategy for dealing with these simultaneous proxy attacks at the same time? Or is it focused primarily, as you mentioned, defeating Hamas first and then taking the necessary steps on the other fronts?
The strategy of Israel is to focus on defeating Hamas first, but at the same time, doesn't mean that we don't fight in the other fronts and sometimes even take offensive measures, like we do now in the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria, especially in Samaria. And the same with Hezbollah. We have already killed many more than 400 Hezbollah operatives during this operation, caused a lot of damage to Hezbollah, and we don't sit idle on our hands. We're fighting, but we are not moving yet to a ground operation, and we are still hoping that this would be possible to reach the goals that we have in the north without ground operation. But we also understand that the chances that this is going to be the case are very low, and that's why we prepare ourselves to a ground operation as well, following the defeat of Hamas in Gaza.
Now, changing gears as we wrap up, we have seen ongoing hostage negotiations that continue, unfortunately, to fail, both sides blaming each other. Today, we saw the families of hostages literally running towards Gaza in desperation. My question for you, from the security perspective, can a deal be made? And if so, why hasn't one been made already?
Can be made, but in order to make it, we need more pressure on Hamas. We need to make Hamas realize that they're going to lose the control of Gaza and will be removed from power there. I think the move that we have just taken in appointing a high-ranking officer to run the humanitarian aid in Gaza is, on the one hand, necessary in order to convince the Americans that we are making our utmost in order to deliver the humanitarian aid, but at the same time is necessary in order to deliver the message to Hamas that we are determined to move forward and assuming the responsibility for the humanitarian aid distribution, so that we should be able to deprive them for the responsibility for that, because as long as they are responsible for the humanitarian aid distribution, they take much of it for their own sake and cause much damage to the population with difficulties in getting what they need.
Absolutely. Well, we are out of time, but I want to thank you, Brigadier General Yosi Kuperwasser, for your analysis. Now, despite thousands of rockets and drones and ongoing attacks on Israel since October 7th, the UN has voted to renew the mandate for the UN Interim Peacekeeping Forces, UNIFIL, in southern Lebanon, that's supposed to be keeping Hezbollah in line. Let's take a look. On Wednesday, the United Nations voted once again to renew the mandate of the UN's interim peacekeeping forces, UNIFIL, for one additional year. The vote passed in the UN Security Council unanimously, but the Council failed to condemn the terror group Hezbollah for grossly violating the mandate with a large attack just days before. In response to the vote, Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, slammed the UN for their failure to secure the southern Lebanon border.
Today, the Security Council is convened to renew UNIFIL's mandate. But what good does this mandate do when it fails so miserably to meet any of its objectives?
The mandate of UNIFIL requires the UN forces to enforce UN Resolution 1701, which limits Hezbollah's ability to carry out attacks on Israel along the Blue Line. The forces have been in place for 18 years, with the mandate expanded in 2006. But there have been repeated violations by Hezbollah, which the UN has done nothing about. The United States also harshly condemned the UN Security Council's failure to keep Hezbollah in line during the vote.
That stability was shattered on the morning of October 8, when Hezbollah initiated a barrage of rocket attacks on Israel, and armed terrorists subsequently infiltrated Israel from across the Blue Line in the aftermath of Hamas's brutal and unprecedented terrorist attack on Israel. Hezbollah made the escalatory decision to bombard communities in northern Israel, and for the past 11 months, it has done so on nearly a daily basis. It is wrong that this Council has yet to condemn Hezbollah for these repeated destabilizing actions.
While the mandate has been renewed, there is little reason to believe UN Resolution 1701 will be enforced anytime in the near future, given the daily drone and rocket attacks coming from Hezbollah. Well, moving across the pond, we have joining us today David Christopher Kaufman of the New York Post to break down some of what's been happening in the U.S. elections and, of course, discuss the impact of the Gaza war on both political parties. David, of course, pleasure to have you in studio today here in Israel. We saw the protests outside the DNC. We've seen this kind of radical, very extreme, even anti-American, anti-Israel groups protesting outside. And of course, in the end, the DNC did not allow a Palestinian American to speak at their conference, likely because they opposed the Democratic candidate. I wanted to get your take on this. What is happening with these protesters? How much of an impact do you think the more extreme anti-Israel crowd will have on the Democratic vote?
Good to be here. Thank you. I think the common thread with everything right now with the Democratic Party is that we just don't know yet, mostly because the candidate, Kamala Harris, has really yet to lay out any firm policies or any firm strategies when it comes to basically anything. Now, tonight's important because she is going to be giving her first major interview tonight on CNN, and there's a lot of anticipation around seeing what she might say around the economy, around the migrant crisis, and of course around Gaza, Israel, and the Palestinians. Last week was very important and was very notable. I think you could say it was a big win for Israel. Of course, everybody is focused on the fact that the more radical pro-Palestinian groups were kept out, but also I think it was really important the way she brought in Hirsch Goldberg's parents, his mother Rachel, the way she was so emotional on stage. It's notable that afterwards, many of those Palestinian groups, one in particular, I read it, I believe in the Los Angeles Times, one of the members of those pro-Palestinian groups was very, very clear. She spoke very emotionally, and she was touched by the fact that Hirsch Goldberg's mom, Rachel, acknowledged the plight of the Palestinians. And she said that she felt more, this woman, this pro-Palestinian protester, said she felt more acknowledged by Hirsch Goldberg's mom than she had felt by the entire Biden-Harris administration since October 7th. So there was a big win. And I would actually say that if Kamala Harris wins in November, we might tie it back to that moment when Hirsch Goldberg's parents appeared on the stage in Chicago.
You know, you've said that we don't yet know exactly what Harris's policies would be, but I want to ask you if you could venture to guess, what do you expect we would see from a Harris presidency versus a Trump presidency when it comes to the U.S.-Israel relationship?
I think what we will see from a Harris presidency vis-a-vis a Trump presidency is not just about Israel and the U.S., but it goes back to Iran. Harris did touch upon Iran. She sort of name-checked them as a global menace in her Democratic acceptance speech. But the Biden-Harris administration has pulled back aggressively from the Trump administration's maximum pressure strategy and have really returned to the sort of laissez-faire, optimistic approach to Iran, and we've seen where that's gotten us. We can say what we want about Donald Trump, but when he was president, we didn't have a recalcitrant, megalomaniac, pariah nation like Iran dictating foreign policy throughout the Middle East and in the U.S. itself. It's notable that there have been a few instances of Iranian agents taking out Iranians on American soil since Biden has come into office. I know you pay particularly close attention to Iran. So I think the bigger issue is that the real wild card is what will Harris do when it comes to Iran? Will she maintain the Biden, the Clinton, the Obama policy of soft hands, of deals, of laissez-faire, or will they go back to the Trump policy of maximum pressure? Say what you want, but we've seen what happens when we release the pressure on Iran, and we're dealing with it right now throughout this region.
We are almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you as a final comment, how can Democrats and Republicans work together to promote this U.S.-Israel relationship that, quite frankly, is mutually beneficial? This isn't a favor to Israel. It's something that's mutually beneficial, and I do think that Kamala Harris, to her credit, acknowledges this, just as Donald Trump has acknowledged in the past. What can they do on the ground to promote this relationship?
Yeah, I think what we can really do is link the fact that Jews, Israel, they share the same values as America. There's so much pressure and so much focus on these kind of manufactured alliances between blacks and Arabs or gays and Arabs. But really, the truth of the matter is these groups have far more in common with Israel. No African American has anything in common with Hamas. No queer American has anything in common with Hamas. They have things in common with Judaism and with Israel and the liberal progressive values that we espouse as a nation and as a people. I think it's important over and over again to show groups that are actively working against us, working against the state of Israel, that they have nothing in common with Hamas, Islamic Jihad, or any Islamic groups that want to kill us. The same groups that want to kill Jews, that want to kill Israel, want to kill the exact same groups in America, as well as other progressive minorities, including gay people, including women, and potentially even black people. And we need to focus on that.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it better myself. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And now for some monumental news. A rare stone seal from the First Temple period, approximately 2,700 years old, has been discovered in a major archaeological excavation near Jerusalem's Western Wall and the city of David. ILTV's Ariel Elachiani has more.
In a remarkable archaeological discovery near Jerusalem's Western Wall and the city of David, a rare stone seal from the First Temple period has been unearthed. Dating back approximately 2,700 years, this ancient artifact bears a winged figure and the name Lehoezer ben Hoshayahu inscribed in Paleo-Hebrew script. Excavation directors from the Israel Antiquities Authority describe the black stone seal as one of the most exquisite ever found in ancient Jerusalem, crafted at the highest artistic level. The seal, which also served as an amulet, was likely worn by a senior official in the Kingdom of Judah and used to sign official documents. Dr. Filip Vukosavovich, an archaeologist specializing in Assyriology, highlights the significance of this discovery, noting that the winged figure, a protective genie, is the first of its kind found in Israel. Similar figures are prominent in Neo-Assyrian art, embodying a symbol of authority and protection. The seal, inherited and possibly inscribed by Yehoezer, offers a unique glimpse into the influence of the Assyrian Empire on Judah, while also reflecting the local identity and literacy of the time. The public will have the opportunity to learn more about this extraordinary find at the 25th Annual City of David Research Conference. This discovery provides a vivid connection to the Kingdom of Judah's past, further emphasizing Jerusalem's historical significance.
After the success of the 2024 Paris Olympics, tourists are flocking to Paris once again, this time for the Paralympics. The opening ceremony commenced last night in Paris, and similar to what we saw in the Olympic ceremony, the Israeli delegation was present, determined, and facing this challenge head-on. ILTV's Devo Klein has the full report.
The The 2024 Paralympics opening ceremony took place last night, an extravagant event lighting up the Champs-Élysées in Paris. As the first Paralympic ceremony to take place outside of the arena, the ceremony served as an incredible symbol of unity and inclusion. Despite prevalent themes of acceptance, the Israeli delegation for the Paralympics faced similar threats as the Israeli Olympic delegation earlier this month. French officials have confirmed that similar to the Israeli Olympic delegation, the Israeli Paralympians would receive around-the-clock security, and the Shin Bet is also playing a role in securing the athletes. The delegation, comprised of 27 athletes, will compete in 10 different sports at this year's Paralympic Games. The team hopes to expand their medal tally from the previous Games, the 2020 Tokyo Games, in which the Israeli Paralympic delegation secured 6 gold medals, 2 silver, and 1 bronze, for a total of 9 Paralympic medals. Bearing the Israeli flag at the opening ceremony last night was Paralympian Adam Berdachevsky. Adam spent 14 hours hiding with his family in their home in Kibbutz Nir Yitzchak, while Hamas terrorists rampaged the community on October 7th. Last night, Adam was yet another symbol of resilience and pride for Israel. Staying true to its values and accurately representing Israel's population, the delegation represented a plethora of people, with a 50% male, 50% female team comprised of native Israelis, immigrants, Muslims, and Druze. Today, the Israeli delegation will take part in swimming, bocce, badminton, and taekwondo, and we wish our Olympians much success.
Now, if you've been missing eTeacher's Hebrew Word of the Week, not to worry, because we're back with some fresh and new words so that you continue your journey of learning Hebrew. Each week, along with eTeacher, we learn a new Hebrew word and relate it to the Bible, current affairs, and our everyday lives. For more info on the Rosen School of Hebrew, please scan the QR code on your screen. But in the meantime, let's hear this week's Word of the Week.
Welcome to Hebrew Word of the Week. I'm Ariella, and in this segment, together with eTeacher, we explore the beauty and depth of the Hebrew language. We'll learn a new Hebrew word or phrase and see how it's used in the Bible, current events, and everyday life. Today's Hebrew word is ahava, which means love. In Hebrew, love is a profound and central concept, encompassing everything from romantic affection to deep bonds of familial or friendship connection. Ahava is a word that carries rich emotional and spiritual significance in Hebrew. It represents a deep connection and care that people feel for one another, whether in personal relationships, communities, or even in a broader spiritual sense. In Hebrew culture, ahava is a fundamental value. It is celebrated in literature, music, and daily life, reflecting the importance of nurturing relationships and expressing care and compassion. Here are some examples of how the word ahava is used in a sentence. Ahava mechaberet ben anashim. Love connects people. Ani margisha ahava gdola elaich. I feel great love for you. So if you're interested in learning more about the Hebrew language, check out eTeacher. This online and live course is the most established Hebrew language instruction institution. You can learn with a time-proven method for every level or start from scratch. eTeacher offers dynamic online courses with live video lessons, weekly webinars, and ample support, and allows you to connect to a lively global community for an enriched learning experience. Scan the QR code or click the link below and visit the eTeacher website today to learn more. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Hebrew word ahava. Please join us next week for another episode of Hebrew Word of the Week. In the meantime, I encourage you to explore the concept of ahava in Hebrew culture and reflect on its significance in your own life. Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments below.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow we'll be seeing sunny skies, and temperatures should rise to highs of 32 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit just before dropping ahead of the weekend. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.